Good evening, everyone, and welcome to the Holyoke School Committee. It is Monday, May 16th, meeting starting at 6:03 p.m. Roll call, please, Ms. Diaz.
Mayor Garcia, Mrs. LaFave,
Present.
Aaron Brunel, Mr. Romero,
Here.
Mrs. Williams, Mrs. Burks, Ms. Feliciano, Mr. Willihan,
Here.
Mr. Collimore,
Here.
Mrs. Wilson,
Present.
Mr. Kennedy, Cheyenne Hall, Jay Shali Santos, Yomaris Martinez.
All rise for the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with justice for all.
Oh, yours is up there. Welcome, everyone. I do want to give a friendly reminder first before starting. Just a reminder that Governor Baker did sign a bill into law on June 16th of last year, allowing public bodies to hold remote meetings through April 22nd, but I think it might have been extended. So some members of the public can access the meeting through our Zoom link, as well as some of our committee members. Also, pursuant to Mass General Laws, Chapter 30A, Section 20, I am hereby informing all attendees that a video and audio recording is being made of the meeting, and the meeting is being live streamed and run live on the city's community TV channel. So with that said, we're going to go ahead and start first with our student showcase.
Great. Thank you. So today we're going to hear from Mcmahon School. Are we waiting for one more? Okay. We can wait, and what we could do is move on to the John Adams recognition. Yes. Oh. Okay, so we did want to recognize some students that unfortunately weren't able to attend the last school committee meeting that had been awarded the John and Abigail Scholarship Award. From what I understand, not all of the students were able to attend today, but I do want to recognize all of them. So I'm going to call out all of their names, and then for the ones that are here, if you can, your principals could just shout you out. I got Al Gates and Lori McKenna both here from the Dean campus and from the North campus. So the scholars that haven't been recognized at any previous meeting are Jackie Jourdain from the North campus, Daly Levesque from the Dean campus, Emmy Lundgren from the North campus, Annalise McBride from the North campus, Liani Oliveira from the Dean campus, Xander Paniero from the Dean campus, Armani Ruiz from the Dean campus, and Julian Salgado from the North campus. So for can we call up Lori first, and then we can go with the Dean campus.
Hi, everybody. I am here with Julian Salgado, who is one of our recipients of the scholarship, and he is planning on next year going to HCC, and he thinks he's going to do culinary. So, Julian, I didn't prepare you for that. Just a thank you. Okay, but if you want to say anything, feel free.
Thanks for the scholarship. I appreciate it.
You put in all the hard work.
So, I should point out, Julian is on the night that McMahon's part of his. Have another McMahon alum.
Excellent.
Great work, Julian. You don't need to thank us. This was all you.
Yeah,
Like we had nothing to do with it.
So Jackie Jourdain
Congratulations.
is had softball. Annalise McBride is at the baseball game, working senior night, and Emmy Lundgren is working, so that's why they're not here tonight. Busy people. So Julian is representing. Thank you, everybody.
Is there anybody have any questions for Julian, Mr. Salgado?
I do.
Okay. Okay. Hold on one moment, Miss Wilson. Miss Tensley Williams.
I just want to say congratulations, and we're for you. We're here for you. Whatever you need, please don't hesitate to call on us, okay? We are very proud of you, and keep up the good work, okay? And I'll be saying a prayer for you.
Thank you.
Welcome.
And then I have Miss Wilson. She's on Zoom, by the way, so she'll be speaking through there.
So, hi, Julian. I'm not sure if you remember me, but it's
Yeah, I
Miss
remember
Ellie
you, yeah.
from first grade.
Yeah.
First grade.
So I knew you were a high achiever then, and I can see that you've fulfilled this destiny up to this point. So I want to say congratulations. Your hard work starting way back in elementary school has paid off. Congratulations.
Thank you. I appreciate it. It was good seeing you.
It's nice seeing you. I was looking forward to this.
He looked really surprised. He's like, whoa, yeah.
I know. Way back to first grade.
She still looks good, yeah. Wow.
Been a long time.
Yeah.
Well, congratulations, Julian. I wish you all the best. The culinary department with HCC and how they built it down at the Cubit. It's going to be amazing. I think you're going to really enjoy it.
I'm excited for it.
Excellent.
Excited for it, yeah.
Congratulations again.
Proud of you.
Just going to call up Al.
Right. And, on behalf of our 4 student recipients, Liani is a carpentry student, senior, mentor, Dean Ambassador, and involved in everything for the 4 years she's been here at Dean. And Xander Pinero is a electrical student, our most outstanding vocational student of the year this year. And looking to land a co-op in the last couple of weeks. He's had a couple opportunities, but he's waiting for the right one. And then we have Daly Levesque, who is in programming and web. And then Armani Ruiz, culinary student, also involved with the Palante program, the Dean Ambassador program, mentoring middle school students, and all 4 of them wish they could be here tonight. But they also have prior obligations, and they wanted me to share with you they appreciate the whole school community and people that have been by their side along the way for the 4 years. So, thank you.
Thank you so much, Principal Gates. And please send them our congratulations, and we wish them much success in whatever path they take.
Thank you very much.
Love you.
So I know our next student showcase was Mcmahon School. Did the other student come? Did you want to wait a little bit more? Okay. All right.
Great.
These 2, they look like they're ready. Let's do this.
I'll call Rebecca Thompson up, the principal at Mcmahon School, to talk about our wonderful Mcmahon students.
Yes. Good evening. Thank you for having Mcmahon this evening. A while back, Miss Conway was walking the hallway with 3 of her students, and they had clipboards and tape measures, and I was baffled by what was happening, but there was definitely learning going on. And before I say anything else, I just want to congratulate Miss Conway. She's a Teach Western Mass graduate. Graduated this past Friday with her certification, and she's a wonderful addition to our staff, our ESL teacher. And so our students had a project that they were working on, a book that they were reading, The Mighty, and they took it upon themselves, wanting to find out if our building was within ADA compliance, and just the empathy and care that they took this on for themselves, and then had the courage to send this letter to Superintendent Soto, who was very responsive as soon as he received it, and were able to get up in front of their peers and read this from their ESL class. So I'll introduce Ms. Conway, who will introduce our students.
So thank you very much for this opportunity. My students have been very excited all week, and we've been practicing for this past week. And like Principal Thompson explained, we have been taking out the theme of disability and accessibility through the book Freak the Mighty. So we learned that academic vocabulary surrounding disability and accessibility. Our third student is here, thank goodness. And so we would love to present to you all the hard work that we've done. We both read a novel and built up that vocabulary and that understanding of audience, all that language there, and they would like to present to you now their letter. They will introduce themselves one by one.
My name is Mcmahon School. I'm in Mcmahon School and I'm in grade 5.
My name is Ketiel Rivera Monge. I go to Mcmahon School. I am in grade 5.
My name is Denalise Alvarez Hernandez, and I go to Mcmahon School, and I'm in grade.
Today we're going to read what we wrote. Dear Superintendent Soto, we have been learning about accessibility and what access disabled people have. We read a book called Freak the Mighty. There's one character named Freak who has a physical disability. We are trying to figure out if Freak or other disabled people could have access to schools in Holyoke.
Found that some places in Mcmahon School are not able to be accessed. The middle school hallway is crowded because of lockers in the small hallway. Bathrooms are inaccessible because the doorways are small. The main office is not able to be accessed to disabled people because it is too crammed. The doorway is too small to get to the principal's office. People using crutches and wheelchairs can't have access. Finally, the music room is inaccessible because there are stairs at the entrances.
This is an issue because other people that don't have a disability can go through doors and stairs, but disabled people can't. Inaccessible doors and stairs at Mcmahon are present. It is not fair that disabled people cannot go everywhere. Disabled people should be respected. Disabled and non-disabled people should both have access to all places.
We suggest to change all schools in Holyoke to become more accessible to disabled people. If there are stairs, there need to be ramps or elevators. Any type of doors that are too cramped shall be changed into a bigger frame. Lockers need to be removed and replaced somewhere else. This is important because we need to treat disabled and non-disabled people the same.
Dearly Miss Conway, ELL grade 5 students.
I'm first going to say thank you. Thank you. And I mean, I am so happy of what you guys did. Looking at not just yourselves who are able, but those that are not able to. And thinking about how they would feel or how they can't just access the things that you can, or me and you can. Does anybody have any comments, questions for any other students? Ms. Tensley Williams.
I just need to say to Mr. Soto, a lot of work needs to be done. We're not happy with what we just heard, and if you need our help, call on us.
Thank you, Ms. Tensley Williams. I have Ms. Ellie Wilson.
So thank you all. I love the writing. I think you really did a wonderful job using your transition words, getting your ideas fully explained to the reader. You addressed the concerns, but I think what was even better is that you had suggestions to make things better, which any person, when they read a letter that has concerns, we always want to hear positive things and suggestions from the writer. So you did a wonderful job, and I applaud you and your hard work that went into writing this letter and the research that you performed. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Wilson. I have Mr. Wellahan.
Thank you for coming. Your presentation was great, and I really appreciate that you're not thinking of yourselves. You're thinking about your fellow students and the general society. So, nice job.
Mr. Collmore.
First of all, thank you very much for that report. And let me say, as a member of the school building committee, and Elaine, the chairman of the school building committee, would really like to thank you for this, because these are things that when we go before the State Board of Education to get funding for building schools, it's so very important that we get reports from everyone that wants to be involved in the school system. And this is wonderful to find out that, you people think that the doors aren't wide enough, the stairwells or whatever you thought about should be in our report, so that the state will really appreciate what was going on here in the city of Holyoke.
Absolutely. Mr. Romero.
I just want to say thank you guys for speaking out. Not everybody likes to do public speaking, so I need to give you a hand, because we need more community leaders. We've been saying that we don't get enough student representation coming in, and we love to see you guys actually come here, speak out, and let us know what's going down. Thank you.
Mr. Soto.
Yeah, sounds like a broken record, but I really just want to say thank you, and I want to express how incredibly proud I am of the three of you for recognizing some inequities in our district and being brave enough to talk about them, being articulate enough to write about it. When we think about what we want to see in our middle school students, you embody that, the courage that you displayed, the how articulate you were, and I just appreciate that. As soon as I heard from them, we had our facilities team go out to the school and take a look, and not just look at McMahon, but they're looking at what we could do. I do expect us to get a response back to you on what we were able to accomplish over the summer. But either way, I just wanted to say thank you and how proud I am of all of you.
Absolutely. And one of the things that we expect is that we get held accountable, right? We want to make sure that you guys have an environment, or everyone has an environment that they can easily access, and that it's not limited to just some and not for everyone. So I take it you really enjoy the book. Did you read the entire book already? Yeah. What really came, like, what happened in the book that you guys were like, you know what, I need to do something. And so we're going to look at McMahon, because right here we're seeing it as well, the inequity. So what part of the book got you guys to even, like, take on this charge? Was it the beginning, the middle, the end? Are you too embarrassed to say? That's okay. So we're going to say it was the whole book from chapter 1 to chapter what? It was a lot of chapters. That's okay. We do thank you for coming. I know it's very nerve-wracking. Trust me, sitting up here, it's nerve-wracking too for us. Not for her. She's always singing us a poem, right?
Oh, right.
Rosalie can do it.
Yep.
But thank you guys so much for coming and sharing that with us. And we will be holding Mr. Soto accountable, so we'll be checking in on that over the summer. So come August, we're going to see where we're at with all of the things that you guys have found. And if we could please get a copy of that letter sent to the school committee, please. Ms. Diaz, just make note that we would like to get a copy of that letter that they submitted. Thank you again so much.
Thank you.
Great job. And next on our agenda is communications and reports. So that is the student report. And we have here with us this evening from the Holyoke High School Dean Campus is Mr. Evan Kennedy. Mr. Kennedy, you want to share your report?
Yes. Good morning, everybody. My name is Evan Kennedy. I'm a freshman here at Dean Campus in the Health Assisting Program. I'm also a member of student government, the Dean's Site Council just recently, and I'm here today as a student representative sitting in for Cheyenne and Kia Maris. Thank you, everyone, for coming, and thank you for giving me the opportunity to talk this evening. And now we have some updates from the Dean Campus. If you have any questions, please hold them until I finish. Thank you. As a school committee, staff, teachers, and students, we are all trying to finish strong. I will be bringing you one piece of information from each grade level, 9 through 12. Ninth grade students have landed in their shops where they will spend the next 3.5 years. The majority of my peers receive their first choice. 10th grade, MCAS math test tomorrow. Mr. Nguyen, who is our math coach, the math department, and many other teachers have been working together to prepare our students for this test. We wish them the best of luck tomorrow and Wednesday. 11th grade. Our junior class is focused on finding high-quality co-op opportunities for the next year, passing their classes, and looking forward to becoming seniors. 12th grade. Our seniors had a senior social today. This event gave our seniors the opportunity to connect, reflect, and present with their classmates. I apologize. Our staff and teachers are working with our seniors to get every senior across the finish line to get their diploma. Thank you. Any questions?
Anybody have any questions? Oh, Mr. Collmore.
What shop are you in?
I'm in the health assisting program.
Thank you very much.
Oh, well, that's nice. How do you like it?
I like it a lot. It's definitely a stepping stone to get where I want to be.
What's your goals?
My goal is to be a paramedic.
Oh, excellent, excellent. Are you in part of the co-op thing, or are you having difficulties in finding?
I'm only a freshman.
Sorry, my bad. Guess I can't even hear with this mask either. But it's good to still check in and start looking into the. Woo! Today's Monday. It's been a long day. After I hear from the other student, then I have something to share with so that the both of you both hear about it, because I think it's really interesting, and I think it's something that will be beneficial for our student reps. She's student rep, correct? Yep. Come on over.
Take your seat.
Hello, I am Jake Lee Santos, and I am repping HHS North School. Would you like me to continue? So some of the updates or highlights we have about the school is the boys volleyball record is 13-1. They have qualified for Western Mass in the MIAA state tournaments. Another update is softball has the opportunity to qualify for the playoffs if they win their games this week, which is the first time in a couple of years. Holyoke High School hosted a unified track championship on May 11th. Huge shout out to all the volunteers who helped make this an awesome event. We couldn't do it without you. We would find out our athletes qualified for the state championship within the next few days. For the fall sports, we are starting fall signups at the middle schools this week and the high school. May 31st through June 2nd, our online forms will be live on June 1st for students to complete their online registration. Football starts on August 19th. Soccer, field hockey, cross country, cheerleading, girls volleyball, and golf begins on August 22nd. Unified basketball will start on September 12th. All information will be posted on the HPS athletic webpage soon. 10th graders will be taking their MCAS on Tuesday and Wednesday this week. To get our students psyched for the test, we had a math rally today. Students engaged in some math competitions. We are hoping to match our 96% attendance rate that we have for English MCAS test. AP testing. Last week, we completed our AP test for 10 different AP courses. We're getting ready to celebrate the class of 2022. We are excited to have the prom, senior night, class day, and graduation.
Excellent. Any questions for Ms. Santos? Ms. Tensley Williams.
If we call the school, may I have a copy of the sports for the rest of the summer? If we call the school, may I get a copy of all of the sports? I know it's going to be online, but if I can have a copy, I will pass it out because the people in my neighborhood would be glad to go.
We can get you a copy, Rosalie.
Yes,
Okay.
I think so.
Thank you. I
Sure.
need more than one because I'm going to hand it from my neighbors.
Yes.
Okay. Thank you.
Any other questions from in the room? I know I have someone on Zoom. Yep. Ms. Wilson.
So I just want to let everyone know that I did have the pleasure of going to the Unified Track Meet, as you had mentioned, and it was wonderful to see students participating, not just as those people helping out, but also as peer mentors or part of the unified team. And I just can't say enough about what a wonderful program that has been put together to support our students here at Holyoke. I also want to just really give a shout out to have more students get involved with the unified programs. It's a wonderful way to be active, to participate, and to really make a difference in your community. So thank you for sharing that.
Thank you, Ms. Wilson. Oh, Mr. Soto.
Yeah, I just want to say thank you for the update, and I know you just came out of batting practice, so good luck with softball in the playoffs. I was able to be there for senior night. Saw Jackie Jordan hit a home run on senior night, which was awesome. I didn't stick around to see how it ended. Did you guys win?
Yes, we won, and it went into extra innings.
That's
so
awesome.
It was a really close game, but it was so fun.
That's great. Thank you.
Yeah.
Anyone else? Okay, so I get it. We're a district under state receivership, but through the Massachusetts Association of School Committees, there's also what's called the Massachusetts Association of Student Reps. They held a meeting this past weekend, and I think it's a beneficial resource for all student reps across the state, because we're here for you, right? You're not here for us. Everyone that works in a district is here for you. So who better than to hear from what's going right and what's going wrong? And as Mr. Soto knows, and many others know, I'm not here to always hear that everything's going right, because then we wouldn't be where we're at right now, right? So we also have to acknowledge the what's going wrong. And the only ones that really would know that are the ones that are experiencing it. So through this Massachusetts Association of Student Reps, it's about getting the student voice out there, but using it in an effective, positive way, where you guys are advocating for systematic change within your district, within your schools. We really need to look at including Holyoke, right? Because what we're seeing most of is the eastern part of the state. Someone from Berkshire's went this past one. But what about those that are in real urban districts? Those that are really struggling, right? Lawrence students, Southbridge students. We've got to start involving ourselves much more. I always say we're not here just to make a change locally, because the issues that we're having here, especially with the underserved population, it's globally, right? So it's not only local, it's statewide, it's national. And so we can really make an impact if we start including ourselves in those changes. Okay, so as I get more information, I will definitely send it to Mr. Soto. And what's good with you, Mr. Kennedy, is because you're starting out as freshmen. So like right now they were talking about passing the baton, right? So those seniors, who are they passing on the student rep? Like what the duties are, right? You start to learn, why am I here? Why am I serving in this role? What is the purpose? A lot of us may sit here and be like, I'm just here just to say yay, nay, right? But you got to think big. And so these are the types of in-services and programs that they have that would really build up those skills for you guys, even as your years go on. But thank you guys for sharing your report with us today. And we hope you can stay with us because there's more that we're going to be talking about, and your voice is very important. So thank you. So with that said, we're going to go on with our superintendent receiver reports.
Great, thanks. Mike, if you could pull the presentation up, I'll just state that we do have a couple of things that we wanted to cover today. One of them being the panorama survey results, and then the other one being a presentation of our balanced budget. As you guys are aware, we normally come to the school committee. We do a panorama survey to all of our students, not all, but a lot of our families, a lot of our students, and a lot of our staff, to just gauge like what the culture and climate is. A lot of emphasis is put on academic student outcomes, but what the panorama survey does for us is it gives us an idea of other things that are equally important, and in some cases more important than some of the student data that we're traditionally looking at. So I do have a presentation to make. I also, if you could go to the next slide, I also want to, just put this into perspective. We are comparing a year where we were mostly remote. So students were remote, teachers were remote, and compared to coming back to school in person after a pandemic, it is definitely no surprise that we see the impact that the pandemic has had on our in-person culture, right? So I just want to, I wanted to preface the presentation with making sure the school committee and the general public had that context. We're comparing, when we do a comparison from one year to the next, we're comparing last year when we were really fully remote, and the schedule looked a lot different as well. As far as participation goes, I'm happy to report that, we did see an increase, a steady increase for the last 3 years in our student participation. So we're currently at 70%, and I do want to shout out those 3 schools in particular that have made an effort to make sure that students are involved and have the highest participation rate across the district. Those schools are number 1 being Kelly. They have 97% of their students took the survey. 2 is Ian White, 92% of their students took the survey, and then 91 of Lawrence students took the survey. So overall, you can see that we've been steadily increasing for the last 3 years in terms of student participation. But we still, we did have a high of about 74% back in 19. We'd love to, we'd love these numbers to be at 100%, but you can see they're going up, which is great. In terms of teachers and staff, no major change. We range anywhere from 73% to 79%. So this year, all of the survey responses reflected here. 78% of our teachers and staff responded to the survey. I also like to shout out Kelly, Sullivan, and the Success Center for getting 100% participation from their teachers and staff. And then on the family front, we did have an increase of over 200 families responded to the survey. Despite a drop in enrollment, we did see more families respond this year than the pandemic year. But we're not where we were pre-pandemic, which was about 1,500 families. So this year, 1,220 families responded, and keep in mind that many of our families have multiple students, so they're representing multiple students in our district. In terms of percentages, respondents for families, the highest 3 were Ian White, Metcalf, and Mcmahon, you can see 60, 45, and 37%. So I definitely wanted to shout out those schools for the efforts they made in making sure their families were represented in this survey. We had given access to the school committee to in terms of the detailed panorama survey with instructions. They've had access for a couple of weeks to just look around and click on schools and click on different questions and different data points. But and as part of that, I wanted to provide context in terms of what the questions look like and what's a favorable response. So you can see here. That's okay. You can see here that we consider the top two answers as responding favorably. So you can see extremely connected and quite connected would be a favorable response, whereas somewhat connected and below would be a non-favorable response. So in this particular question, you can see that when you add the 30 and the 15, you get roughly 45%. In this case, it was rounded down to 44%. And then on the bottom left-hand corner, you can see the change from last year. So in this particular question, you can see that 44% of the families, or 44% responded favorably, which was an 18-point increase from last year. So that's just how to read it when you're in there. So let's get into some of the information. Here we have our student survey data. And again, I mentioned this, and I'll probably mention it a couple times. You can see that there were decreases across the board, and in comparison to where students felt during the pandemic when they were mostly remote. With the exception of cohort C, most of our students came back in April last year. But you can see the most concerning areas are around school climate and safety, and this is grades 3 to 5. That's where we've seen the biggest decrease, and the only place in our student survey data that we saw a favorable response or an increase was around student relationships. Obviously, that makes sense. Students were not necessarily building good relationships when they were mostly remote. They didn't have time. They didn't have opportunities to connect with other kids and do other things. But now that the students are in person, we're showing a favorable response in terms of the relationship they have with their peers compared to last year. Now, grades 6 to 12, very much consistent with what we saw in grades 3 to 5 on the school climate and safety. We did see some decreases compared to last year. We saw decreases across the board, with the exception of student relationships, where the student relationships was the only data point that we saw an increase. Again, obviously, when students were remote and they came back to in person, they just had more opportunity to develop those relationships. But the most notable drops are around school climate and safety. Now, this next slide, these are 3 questions that we called out a few years ago as being an area for us to focus on and prioritize and improve upon. There's 3 questions here. How often do your teachers make you explain your answers? Do you feel safe in the hallways, lunchroom, and bathrooms of your school? And are your culture and native language respected at your school? You can see here that only slightly over 50% of our students responded favorably to the first 2 questions, and we have a lot of work to do there. In our quarterly 3 review with SIP, we noted that some of the tasks that are being put in front of kids isn't rigorous and isn't grade level. We talked about that at the last school committee meeting. So those are 2, especially the first one. Making sure that students are grappling with the test and are able to explain their answers. We want to see more of that in classrooms. So we know we have some work to do there. Also, given the pandemic, we've been talking about this all year. We definitely had a rough beginning of the school year, and things started to like progressively get a little better, but nowhere near where we'd like to see in terms of a positive environment for our students. And then, in terms of are your culture and native language respected at your school, you can see that 67% of students in grades 3 to 5 feel it is, and then in grades 6 to 12, 76%, which is pretty high. This next slide dives into that culture. Are your culture and native language respected at your school? Digs in a little deeper. I do want to point out that this is grades 3 through 3 to 12. So Lawrence can be a little skewed because it's only 22 students that took the survey, because it's only their third graders that ended up taking it. But you can see here the wide range of schools, with Gateway students feeling most that their culture and native language is respected at the school, as well as Success Center, and you can see the numbers from there. But I would say, if we were to pick an average, actually we don't need to pick an average because that was on the last slide. 76% of our 6 to 12 graders responded favorably, and then 67% of our grades 3 to 5. Some highlights that we pulled out of the student survey data. There's questions here, and we tried to pick 3 grows and 3 glows from the survey data. And I'll just be upfront. Obviously, school culture is something that was consistent when we looked at family, when we looked at student, and when we looked at staff. We have a lot of work to do around developing the school culture to what it was pre-pandemic. So the greens, you can see, those are what we're calling glows, and the reds are grows. Are there adults at your school whom you can go to for help if you need it right now? 85% of our students responded favorably to that, which is only a 1 point increase. To the question, is it clear to you what you need to get a good grade? 78% of our students responded favorably to that question, which was a 3-point drop, but it's still pretty high. And then, how successful does your teacher think you could be? Again, 77% of our students responded favorably to that, despite a 4-point drop. It's still pretty high. Now, in terms of the grows, in your class, how excited are you to participate? Only 32% responded favorably to that question, which is a 5-point drop from the previous year. Do books and materials at your school have people in them who look like you? Only 29% of our students responded favorably to that, which was a 1-point drop from the previous year. And then at your school, how much does the behavior of other students help or hurt your learning? I know that's a tricky question, but 22% of our students feel that the behavior of other students have an impact or actually help their learning. So this is, a large majority of our students feel like other student behaviors are actually impacting their, hurting their learning, which is a 15-point drop from the previous year when students were remote. Moving on to the teacher portion of the way this presentation is broken up is there's a student section, a teacher section, and then a family section. So moving on to the teacher surveys, we broke out teachers versus other staff. You can see consistently, with the exception of safety, which safety there were a lot of COVID related questions in there. So you could see that teachers responded favorably to that. There was a 1 point increase to 83% in terms of teachers feeling safe. But I think that had a lot to do with the safety protocols that we put in place for COVID, as opposed to the culture of the climate and culture of the school. But you can see there were drops in every category, particularly in school climate, which I talked about earlier presentation. Staff survey, same thing. You can see there were drops across the board in terms of educating all students, professional learning, professional practice, resources, but with the exception of safety, which saw an increase, and then we see school climate and school leadership. Similar to what we saw with students, there were two areas that we talked about prioritizing a few years ago when Dr. Zreich was here, and it was the two questions: at your school, how valuable are the available professional development opportunities, and overall, how positive is the work environment of your school? So you can see here that only 31% of teachers felt that professional development at their opportunities at their school was valuable, which is really concerning, but it's also inconsistent with exit ticket survey. So every time we do a professional development and we go in, we get exit survey data, and for the most part, this information is not consistent with that. So that's something that our team really needs to dig into. And we had a conversation about it at cabinet, because we want to make sure that the professional development we're providing to teachers is helpful to them and is improving their practice. So I'm not sure how to connect those two, but it's something we need to dig into a lot for sure. And like I said, we do have a lot of work to do around the school environment. This was consistent with the staff, the student data that we just reviewed. Only 41% of our teachers feel that it's a positive work environment, and 59% of our non-teaching staff feel like it's a positive working environment, which is, it's more than half, but still not where I'd like to see this. You can see here on the next slide, which I think you're a slide ahead, or two, slide or two, Mike. There you go. Thank you. On here, you could just see a wide range of how teachers responded to how positive the work environment is. This represents a lot of our staff. Remember, 78% of our staff took this survey. You can see the wide variety of responses from 100 down to 7. Some schools feel like the work environment is positive, and some don't, and it's just a really, really big mix. What's interesting about this data, it's not triangulated with any of the student data, but I know for sure, there's some schools that principals are really pushing accountability for students, and it's having an impact on this data. What I think we need to go back as a team is really triangulate that data, because there's some schools here that rated low in terms of positive work environment because of how hard the principals are pushing on improving teacher practice. We've seen good results, at some of those schools. We've seen good results in terms of student outcomes. So, that is an interesting takeaway for me and for our team, is taking this information and pairing it up against, some of the student data that we normally look at. On the teacher glows and grows, You can see here that 78% responded favorably to how possible is it for students to change how much effort they put forth. 77% responded favorably to how often does your school show respect for all cultural beliefs and practices. And then this one here is in yellow because although it's 68%, there was a significant decrease from last year of 11 points. Is do leaders at your school foster a culture of collaboration in your school, which is something that I heard, as part of my entry planning process and some of the priorities that emerged around making sure that our special ed, our ELL, and our regular education teachers are collaborating and that teachers have enough time to collaborate with each other. And then the concerning data points here around to what extent can teachers at your school increase how much their most challenging students can learn? Only 37% responded favorably to that question, which is something that we really need to dig into. I have a strong belief that if we raise expectations for our students, that they're going to rise to the occasion. And I don't want to speculate, but it doesn't really sit well with me that there's some teachers that feel that they've done everything they can for those students. And I just, that's concerning to me. When the school makes important decisions, how much input do teachers have? Only 21% responded favorably to that, and that's a drop of about 15 points. And then how much input do you have into the professional development at your school? Only 19% of our teachers responded favorably to that, which is concerning. Non-teaching staff, I'll go through a few glows and grows. How often does your school show respect for all students' cultural? That was 83%. How often does your school explore all possibilities for student success? 78. And do leaders at this school communicate a clear vision for your school? Although 66% responded favorably, that was a 17% drop. And then on the grows, we can see here that only 52% responded favorably, which was a 15-point decrease. To the question for students who need extra support, how difficult is it for them to get the support that they need? When the school makes important decisions, how much input do staff have? Only 45% of our staff responded favorably to that. So that's less than half, which is a decrease of 6 points from last year. And then on most days, how enthusiastic are students about being at the school? Only 42% responded favorably, which was a pretty significant drop from last year when we were in remote learning. Also 14-point drop. The last section of this, and then we could go into questions, is the family surveys. This is I don't know that there's a ton to highlight here, other than I can tell you that our family data has not moved for the last 4 or 5 years. Like goes up a point, down a point, but like I just think it's strange that it hasn't really moved. So for the most part, you can see from year to year, and if I were to take this data and move it out 3 or 4 years, it would be very consistent here. There's very small fluctuations between 1 year to the next in the panorama survey. Even though we had, 200 more families respond, you can see the fluctuation just isn't there. The two priorities that we had focused in on a few years ago were how often do you meet or communicate via email or phone about your child with your child's teachers? Only 56% of families responded favorably to that question. And then 49% responded favorably to how often does this school provide programming and opportunities for your family to learn, how to support your child's learning at home. Only half of our families responded favorably to that. And on the next slide, you can see Again, the average was right around half of our families, but shout out to Morgan and Kelly for whatever they're doing. Their families feel really, really connected to their child's learning at home, and the Morgan and Kelly families really feel that they're given the opportunities to help with their students' learning. So I really definitely wanted to shout them out because we know that how important that is. Some glows and grows around family survey data. Does this school expect all students to do well and achieve success? 86% of families feel yes and responded favorably. Do people of different cultural backgrounds, races, or ethnicities get along well at this school? 84% of the families responded favorably to that. And do you feel welcome in your child's school? 84% of the families that responded favorably to that. Some not so good data is how often do you meet or communicate via email or phone about your child's with your child's teachers. A little over half responded favorably to that question. And then around the programming, we just talked about that only 48% of the families that responded feel they have an opportunity to support their child's at home and that the school's providing that programming for them. I know that, this was pretty gloomy, like data points to when you look at climate and culture, we've felt it. We've heard across the nation how our teachers are feeling, how our students are feeling, not just in Holyoke, but across the state. So we're seeing that in our data, but despite, all of the, despite this kind of gloomy picture of culture, there are some bright spots that I want to call out. I really want to shout out Kelly Schools for some of their students' responses. 91%, which was 11 points higher than last year, 91% of the students at Kelly said that they have an adult that they can go to for help at the school. 64%, which was a 22% point increase, feel connected to their students right now, and 63%, which was a 14-point increase, feel connected to adults at the school. 86% of the students report that teachers encourage them to do their best. 84% report that teachers take the time to make sure they know the material. And 63% said, which was a 10-point increase, said that students said that they would recommend this school to another student. So kudos to Kelly for making your students feel welcome and for always for having adults available to them that they feel comfortable going to. That hasn't always been the case, and you can see the increases in there from that our students responded. And then at Sullivan, I wanted to spotlight the teacher survey data. So the Sullivan, the 70% of the teachers, which is a 32-point increase from the previous year, report that the school leaders set a positive tone for the school. A 22-point increase of 70% report that the school leaders model and support data-driven decision-making. And then 91% believe it is possible for students to change how much effort they put forth, which was an 11-point increase from the previous year. And then 18-point increase of 70% report using data to inform instruction. And then a 13-point increase report that leaders at their school communicate a clear vision. So shout out to the leadership team at Sullivan for what they're doing and making staff feel positively in terms of the way they responded to a lot of the questions here that we highlighted. So I know that was a lot, but I did want to open it up to the committee for any questions.
That was a lot of information. You guys as well can feel free. If you have any comments or anything, just raise your hand and I will call upon you. Is there anyone that has any comments or questions? Mr. Romero.
I noticed that student enjoyment was I think it was 33%. I'm not gonna look. And teacher enjoyment of how much they enjoy the job is about 50ish. Is it due because the subject matter they're teaching? Are they just not enthusiastic about what they're teaching? I know this doesn't tell us, but I mean, can we add that question next time? Maybe it'll give us a little broader sense of why they're displeased about their workplace. It could just be subject matter. It could be, you know what I mean, other reasons. But I mean, I would like to know.
Yeah, I think if you, I'd be open to. I'm skeptical. I don't want to change any of the questions, but if you think there's some really, really important questions that we need to ask, or if we need to get clear in our expectation in our questions, I want the opportunity to do that. But by completely changing a question, you lose the history,
impact,
right?
I understand.
I want to make sure that to me, this is a new, just like the country's talking about a new baseline and the state's talking about a new baseline for student outcomes, knowing that the pandemic has had an impact on their learning. I feel like now we have a new baseline post-pandemic to go from, right? Comparing this year to last year when it was remote, it's different,
Yeah, it's not fair.
It was a different environment, When we were remote learning, we didn't have fights. We didn't have we didn't have
Well, it was easier to mute the
normal
kids than to have them in the class ganging up on each other. I understand that. My point is if the teacher is happier of what they're teaching, if I'm more happy going to work teaching quantum mechanics than I am about 1 + 2 is fish.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. I think that would be easier to dissect in the high schools, right? Where they're specific content teachers versus the elementary school teachers who are doing it all. They're doing ELA, they're doing math, they're doing science, they're doing it all.
Understood.
But if you have a specific question that you'd like us to add, please email me and Sam, and we'll evaluate. We'll talk about it as a team and
awesome.
Try to see if there's a. But then there's no history for that. We would just.
No, I understand that. I mean, might as well make something more concrete if we can. You know what I mean? Make something stronger. I mean, work on it and make it a better tool than what it already is. I mean, it's awesome to already know this. You know what I mean? It's awesome background, awesome standing ground to go up. But I just if that one question, you know what I mean? It would give me a little bit more knowledge of why they're displeased in that numbers. That number.
Right.
Ms. Tensley Williams?
I understand that in this room, in this world, there's only room for improvement. Mrs. Soto is doing a good job, and what I love is when I see the plus instead of a lot of minuses. I'm excited about that. It's moving up, even if it's 22 points. Every point counts. And data counts. And I really appreciate the strides that Mrs. Soto is, and all of us together, but Mrs. Soto is doing a good job. And I just want to let the people know that we're happy with what he's doing. And I know there's room in this world for improvement. We've never attained until we just keep on working. So don't give up, Mr. Soto, and just be encouraged.
Yeah. I mean, I appreciate you saying that. I can't say I'm happy with this data. It's really... stuff like this keeps me up at night, and this is one of the things that we definitely need to. I mean, it's part of my entry planning. I heard it loud and clear. We need to have a positive learning environment in our schools, and to me, this just highlights that right now we don't, and we got a lot of work to do. So
Right.
I know our team is committed to doing everything we can to
But at
work
least now we
pluses.
know.
Thank you.
Mr. Wellham.
Thank you. Yeah, just some of the questions I was just kind of looking at why the answers kind of going back and forth on them. I know like one of the questions for the students, they're like not that excited to participate. Maybe that's a language barrier. They don't feel comfortable getting up in class because they're having trouble with the language. That might be a concern for that. So that's just kind of my thoughts on that. Maybe that's the answer. Maybe it's not.
I don't think it's a language barrier. I think what we're putting in front of kids is not challenging, is not rigorous, and we really need to elevate what we're asking our kids to do, and it has to be more culturally responsive. It has to be something they like, and we really need to look at that.
One of the questions is on how hard is it for the students to get support that they need? Again, they probably haven't built up a relationship with their teachers yet because last year was was virtual, so they haven't had that one-on-one with the teachers yet. It takes time to kind of build a relationship with the teacher. So that might be one of the reasons why that question kind of went backwards on us. And just kind of follow up what Gus was saying, just on one of the questions. I don't like the question on the student survey on the for your school. How does the behavior of the students either help or hurt your learning? That's kind of like a double negative. It's kind of hard to answer that, yes or no. So I think that's maybe one of the reasons why there was such a drop in the response on that. It's kind of a double negative on that, in terms of how to answer it. So I don't really like the way that question is worded. But again, the surveys speak for themselves. Okay, thank you.
Any others in this room? Miss Holly Wilson.
Well, thank you so much. So I'm going to first piggyback on Mr. Willihan's comments. And I think when I read this, I take into account of not only the year we had last year, but the year we're having this year within education, not only as a district, but as a country and as a world. I think more students are having challenges, which I do think we're seeing more disruptive, dismissive behavior by students in classes, due to the fact that we have to reteach them how to be in school. So I kind of do see that 15 points as a valid number, unfortunately, which is quite sad that 22% of our students, it's just a horrific number. When I look at the teacher survey, the overall trends, going from a 71% to a 58% for educating all students, I think is a statistically significant point, which is very concerning to me, especially piggybacking on the data that we had last week about the students who are, below grade level at reading. And I'm going to just clarify, I've had 4 days to look at this data. I haven't had a week or two. So I got the data on the 12th. And I see most of the gains we've made since 2017-18 have actually gone back to almost the starting point for us. So the data to me is very concerning. It's very concerning to me as an educator. It's concerning to me as someone who, cares about our students in the district, but also someone who cares about our teachers. And I think that there's been like a good 10-point shift on so many of these teacher survey points. And I just want us to have another exodus of teachers when we all know that continuity is so important to our students and the growth, of our district. So I guess my question is, Mr. Soto, how are you and your team going to delve into this? I'm going to be specific with the teacher data, since we've had so many vacancies previously and currently. How is that going to be looked into and worked on?
Are you referring to the vacancies?
No, I'm referring to the data overall, and how that's going. And I think that in turn that affects teacher satisfaction, which then, creates, if you're not satisfied, there's turnover.
Look, every single principal in the district looks at this data and they reflect on it, and I think that this represents, and I don't want to sit here and make any excuses. This is terrible information in terms of measuring climate and culture in a school, but it's consistent with what I've been hearing all year. In terms of how our staff and our students have had the impact that it's had on in-person learning. I am very much concerned as well with with our we're gonna hear a budget presentation from our CFO Mickey Buell later that really puts a solid plan with students first, and but one of the biggest challenges that I'm facing and that we're facing as a community is the staffing shortage that is not just happening in Holyoke, it's happening everywhere. We just had a hiring fair at Holyoke High where we normally have over 100 applicants, over 100 teachers waiting in line to talk to every single principal and potentially come to work in Holyoke. We had that fair last week and 8 teachers showed up. 8. So that is concerning. What we are gonna, we are in the process of negotiating with the union. We do plan there will be an increase in compensation. That's for sure. And we're right now we are engaging in a process with ERS, Education Resource Strategies, I believe is the name of the consultant, but they're working with our team to try to take all of the feedback that I had gotten from staff in our entry planning and to develop a schedule that addresses some of the concerns that were brought up. We talked about, students wanting a little more time for recess, and a little more, students wanting more specials. And we talked about teachers wanting more time to collaborate and wanting more time to do a lot of the things that we've been asking them to do. And with the staffing shortage, there just hasn't been enough time in the day to do it. So we're working with a consultant to put together a schedule that allows for that collaboration time, and that allows for real protected time for teachers to reflect on student data, reflect on some of the observations and feedback, and really improve their practice. I think no one feels like I think the best way anybody gets motivated is to feel like you're doing a good job, right? That to me that's the most way to get motivated, is to feel like you're adding value and to feel like you're doing a good job. And if we're asking teachers to do a lot and not giving them enough time to do it, that's a problem. And that to me, that's where we're focusing. How do we do that? How do we put a compensation package that's competitive with surrounding districts? We just signed on we offered a $3,500 bonus to all teachers that were with us before the pandemic. and that commit to stay with us. Those are things that have never been done before in Holyoke, right? So we're doing everything possible that we can, but I'm not going to sit here and say like those things are going to fix it, right? There's a huge problem in the entire United States in the education system around, and we share it here. We look at it, and it's concerning. I go back and say 8 teachers showed up to our hiring fair when we normally had over 100. That's scary to me.
I guess I just want to, my last point is just going to be, I think a huge significant drop was when teachers feel they're part of making important decisions. And I just want to make sure that our school leaders, are involving teachers. And I know some decisions cannot have teacher involvement in everything we do, but it's also and I'm going to say these words, it's the appearance of being involved. It's listening to our teachers and making sure, and I think a 15% point drop, not percent, excuse me, the 15-point drop is showing that there's not even an appearance of being involved. So I just hope that our school leaders are not just going to reflect on that themselves, but with their staff.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. I really, all of our building leaders, they look at this data, and I think that that's a data point they're all going to reflect on.
Right, yeah.
I know that as a district, we value teacher input. Through my entry planning, you saw we had, over 500 teachers respond. The ERS consultant that I just talked about developing a schedule. We have a team of teachers that are involved and at the table, helping guide these discussions around the schedule for next year. I have a teacher advisory group of over 15 teachers where we get regular feedback from them. So, I know that our principals looked at that data, and they're thinking about what could I do differently next year.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
There's not a doubt in my mind.
So I have to end. Actually, I lied. I didn't end. I'm going to end with something positive. The positive is that 84% of our families believe that their child is welcome at our schools, and I think that is something that should be celebrated. I think it takes every person in the school to make a child and a family feel welcome, and I think, everyone does a wonderful job doing that.
Thank you, Ms. Brunel.
Yeah, I just wanted to make a comment when we were discussing the fact that, you look at the survey as being kind of like reset to ground zero, right? Like post-pandemic, it's a fresh start. There's only one way to go up from here, hopefully. But, and then hearing your point to, added compensation and figuring out what we can do to attract teachers, it's like this whole entire nation's education system and how we value teachers is so backwards. I don't know any other profession where you're expected to go to work from 7 a.m. to 3 p.m. and then you leave work and you have to work all night to catch up with the work that accumulated while you were trying to teach students. We just demand and expect too much out of teachers. And it's not a Holyoke problem, though we obviously have it as well. It's not just a state problem, it's a national problem. And when you say, ground zero and starting afresh, I couldn't agree more. And, compensation packages are great, but compensation packages don't last. We want to be a district where teachers feel like they have an impact on their students. So one of the points that concerns me the most is, do you feel that the students are getting the extra support they need? To what extent do teachers in your school increase how much their most challenging students learn? Teachers today don't feel as though they can teach to their skill set, to the knowledge they gained earning all of the degrees that they have, because governmental has too much of a finger on what teachers can actually do. We're teaching to the test. We're having math rallies to get these kids excited to pass this stupid MCAS. You know, teachers don't have the liberty to decide what to do with their day. So let's really look at this as a ground zero, and let's look at district-wide. What liberties are we going to offer our teachers? What can we do differently as a district to attract teachers because of how we're running our schools, because of what our expectations are, because of what we're allowing our teachers to do throughout the day? You know, money is great, and I couldn't support and agree more that all teachers deserve to get paid more, but they deserve to have say. They deserve to have an impact. They deserve to be heard. They deserve to have not just time for collaboration, but time to sit there and grade tests and grade classwork, so that way when they leave school, they have time to enjoy their families and their home life. So, you know, it's a district problem, it's a state problem, it's a nationwide problem, and I just hope that somehow we can find ways to start making teachers feel valued. Starting with Holyoke, but going from there. So that's just the comments I wanted to add.
Print it off. Thank you, Ms. Brunel. Anyone else? So I do want to say, if any members, I definitely want to make sure that you guys are receiving information like this on time. So if there's something wrong with the emails, please let them know at the office, because this information was sent out on May 9th, so about a week ago. And it is a lot to digest. I am going to say that, because as everybody's been talking, I've been clicking back and forth to the various tabs, and then what questions were involved for each section. Praising overall scores is not what I'm here to do tonight. I'm not praising these overall scores. I think we really need to look at each of the individual questions, and then we need to really start prioritizing as to, because technically, when you go to work, you like your work, and you like who you're working with, it's about morale, right? Job morale. That vibe comes out to the people that you interact with. So the same happens in schools, right? If the person coming in, any staff, I don't care if it's the cafeteria worker to the teacher to the para, to the first person that families meet when they enter the door, the one who is welcoming you and saying, "How may I help you?" That vibe right there will determine how the day is going to go, or what the response is going to be. So I'm going to tell you right now, when I'm looking at school climate, and if I'm looking at a specific question, I know Ms. Wilson brought up about how much do teachers and staff care about your child, and this is on a parent, or is a parent survey? Is that what they called it overall? Okay. The one that I like to see is that really green color, which says a huge amount, because it's broken up into a huge amount, quite a bit, somewhat, a little bit, not at all, right? Out of 1,220 respondents, only 49% felt that the teachers and staff cared about their child. 49% compared to whatever was mentioned as an overall. I am not going to say that that's great, because it's not. We got to start looking at each individual thing. In order for us to change the trajectory of where Holyoke is going, is we've got to change the environment, right? So those that are in it, we have to change, or change how we interact. I know there's a lot going on. I get it. There's constantly, we're going to change this, we're going to change that, we're going to change this, we're going to change that. Let's do this way, let's do this that way. Maybe this will work, maybe that'll work. And people can get flustered. Trust me, I got flustered today. It was like everybody was coming left and right. Oh my God, you got a positive here, you got a positive there. And I was starting to lose my mind. I'm like, there's too much happening all at once. So I get it. But then how can we change that? I mean, like, compensations aren't always going to be there money-wise, but what other ways can we start praising and validating the work that is being done in each of the schools? I mean, even as us as school committee members, how do we give back to the schools and to the staff, all staff, and make them feel like, thank you so much for all that you're doing, right? Even if it means just going in and thanking everybody, writing them a letter. It's not all about money and making yourself look, I just gave them a whole lunch, and it's not about that. Do it on your own time.
Right.
Participate in activities that are welcoming families, like Morgan School. Though that's another thing. When I was looking at family engagement, Morgan and Keller were at the top. Why? Why are they at the top? The South Holyoke the South Holyoke Safe Neighborhood Initiative. So you have Ed Case there that's connecting with so many different organizations doing these fun events for Morgan School. So what does One Holyoke do? Nairobi. She wants to do the same thing and help out the Kelly community. So now we're trying to do all this with our family, am I still going to say FIAC, Family Access and Engagement Coordinators, to really start that engagement piece. You know, but we have so much of that success in those two schools, and it's what they're trying to do. Why aren't we duplicating that same kind of thing? If it takes an Ed Case to go around and try to create that, then we need to ask him, hey, reach out Lawrence to do it at Lawrence. I know we used to do it a couple years over there. I don't know what happened with that. But we've got to start going back to really acknowledging the hard work that everyone's putting in and not just constantly looking at what they're not doing. So really praising them for what they're doing and then giving feedback on how we can improve that. Once we do that, I think we're going to start seeing, I honestly, truly believe we're going to start seeing the change in student success and outcomes. Our goal here is to get all of our students, no matter their abilities, to succeed, right? And once we can get to that, getting the environment that people want to be at and really strive for making it happen is when we're going to start seeing the fruits of that. Miss Tensley Williams.
To me, an excuse is a reason to fail. I'm not going to make an excuse, but before the pandemic, I went to all the schools and got a little afraid to really go into the schools because you're seeing COVID so much. And it breaks my heart not to be able to go into the schools again and talk to the teachers, talk to the principals. And that's very important what you just said, because it takes each and every one of us to get into the schools, let the teachers know, let the principals know. I even talked to kids when I went to the schools. And now I feel like my hands are tied. I'm like, what can I do now to help? So what I was trying to do was do some finances, because romance without finance is dead. So sometimes they also serve who only stand and wait. But like I say, my heart breaks because I cannot. I'm 77 years old, and I can't be all in crowds and stuff, but I do use my mask. But I really miss it a lot. My heart, I have things I can go into the schools with the kids with arts and crafts, teach them things, and I just can't get it. I'm going to make banks for them, show them how to make banks, start saving money. It's hard for me to get there because I'm afraid to just be mixing all in there. So I think we're going to change. It's going to change. And I believe that a lot of people want to go back into those schools again and do that work. You're right. That's the way we do it. We get in there in a personal way. Dean, I used to go there a lot. I went to Morgan School. All of the kids belong to me, from Sullivan on down. So it's not God bless us for no more. We're all in this together in this city of Holyoke. And I don't like the negatives, And I'm not one of those, oh, goody, goody, we got a lot of positives. No, the only room in this world is room for improvement. And that's what we all need to start working on.
Absolutely.
End of sermon, okay?
Thank you, Ms. Tensley Williams. Mr. Romero?
I'm thinking it's more of a symbiotic relationship, where if you get the teacher to be at that comfort level, happiness, or enthusiastic about their job, you'll reap the benefits almost immediately with the students, because they'll be more engaged and they'll be more enthusiastic about what that person is showing them, because their enthusiasm is it spreads, you know. And I don't know, that's just my little comment.
Thank you, Mr. Romero. Mr. Collimore?
Along that subject, and I appreciate what Mr. Soto is doing about trying to upgrade the teachers, custodians, their pay, because they really deserve it. But one thing we haven't done as a board, and I think maybe we ought to think about it, is honoring the volunteers that come in after school hours and during school hours to help our teachers, help our principals, help anyone, but they're all volunteering to help our students. And this is what we should be doing to enhance the school system and make it a better school system that we have. Start with volunteers, helping them just by calling them in, give them a picnic or whatever, give them a citation, whatever, but award and respect what they're doing for our schools.
Absolutely. Thank you, Mr. Collimore. I mean, again, a lot of information in that. It's a lot for us to digest in one day. We're going to go ahead and move into our fiscal year 23 budget presentation.
Great. I'm going to call Mickey up here as well to help present. This is an opportunity for the school committee to ask questions on the balanced budget that we are proposing. I want to start by just thanking everybody who was involved in developing the budget, all of our principals, our CFO, Mickey Buell, the cabinet, Tiara West in our finance department, and Amanda, and everybody involved. As many of you know, the budget process is a collaborative process. It's not just me sitting in an office with Mickey determining, what schools are going to get. We really involve principals in developing their spending plans. We've involved department heads. So there's a portion of the budget that's, we provide in terms of like target class sizes and core staffing. And there's a large portion of the budget that that the principals make decisions on. Like, this is what I want to do with our resources. So I really appreciate that process and how collaborative it is. And it's not just me and Mickey sitting in a back room deciding what schools get. So with that said, I'm going to skip the vision and the strategy work because we are in the process of doing a strategic planning process. I want to thank Mildred and thank Rebecca Burks that they're on both the steering and the advisory committees helping us develop this. So I'll skip over to our equity commitments, which is slide number 30. These are hot off the press. We've been revising these over the years, and as part of our 40-member advisory board on strategic planning, we made sure to revise these and make sure they're right for Holyoke. And I just want to ground everyone, like, equity is what we do every single day. Everything we do, from budget development to what our everything is grounded in these commitments, and we ensure that the students, families, and staff get the support they need to be successful. We seek out and incorporate the voices of those impacted with a commitment to include those who have been excluded in the past. We promote access and inclusion for all students, staff, and families. We respect, embrace, and honor the diversity of our students, families, staff, and community. We reflect on our own behavior to minimize harm to others. We intentionally build a community that is anti-racist, inclusive, and culturally responsive. And we create a culture of acceptance and empathy so that everyone feels valued and is able to contribute to our community's success. Moving on to slide 32, as part of our district priority, our entry plan findings, it was clear to me that we need to do a better job, especially around early literacy and literacy in general. I strongly believe that literacy is the key to improving all of our other academic outcomes. If our kids learn to read by third grade and then they're reading to learn after that, they're going to do better in math. They're going to do better in science. But we really need to have a strong focus on making that happen and improving literacy instruction across the district. I talked about inclusive supports and collaboration. We need to do a better job with what we're providing our students and in the classroom, and try to make sure that all of our staff are collaborating in a way that these are all our students. Just because it's an ELL or a special ed student doesn't mean it's yours or mine or theirs. Like, these are all our students, and we need to make sure we're making the right decisions that's going to help every student be successful in school and beyond. And, no need to beat this up. We really need to improve we need to meet the social emotional learning needs of our students. We just talked about culture in our schools, and this is a huge part of it. So what I'm really proud to just reiterate is that our principals really went in on these are the right priorities, and we're all in. We're going to develop a spending plan that's going to really help get at all of this. So I really appreciate the collaboration there. Slide 34, I think, is really important for the committee to know how we're using ESSER funds. So there is a significant portion of ESSER funds that we're doing to upgrade, our HVAC systems and to do a lot of one-time things with. But there's also a portion of our ESSER funding that we're trying to accelerate the Student Opportunity Act. The Student Opportunity Act is basically, a lot of people got together in the state and said, districts like Holyoke are not getting enough money, and we need to do something about it. We're not giving Holyoke enough money to meet the students' needs, and we need to do something about it. And what they did was they came up with a plan to slowly give Holyoke more money over the course of 6 years. So every year it goes up 1/6 of what we should be getting. They already decided, hey, if we fully implement this, Holyoke should be getting this number. But they can't do it all at once, and they're slowly implementing it. How we're using ESSER, a portion of ESSER, is let's not wait till year 6. What do we want to see in year 6 in our schools? We want to see more counselors and supports for students. We want to finally see academic intervention teachers, which we didn't have throughout receivership. We want to make sure that teachers are getting high quality coaching and that they have access to an ELA coach and a math coach. And we need to basically increase the supports for our English language learners. We did provide a one-time investment where we said, principals, we want you to become instructional leaders, and we recognize that it's hard to do that when you're dealing with day-to-day operations. So temporarily, we're going to create these deans of management and operations positions so that you can focus on, the Relay Institute and getting stronger as an instructional leader, you and your assistant principal. And we'll provide this temporary help. At each school, we have a Dean of Management and Ops. And those are things that we've committed to for last year or this year and next year. Last year, this year, and next year. With the hopes that, that when ESSER goes away, we have enough Student Opportunity Act money to keep this great stuff going. Because we had a conversation about it today. I'm very worried about the amount of vacancies and the amount of hiring that we have to do based on, the new positions that we added. But there's one thing that I am wholeheartedly feel our students deserve and our schools need, that they need the right amount of counseling supports. They need academic intervention teachers. Like, our teachers can't do it alone. If we're really going to climb out of receivership and get students what they need, we need these positions. And we need coaches to help support better teaching. So these are things that I don't think are one-time use. We need to make sure that we could sustain these things beyond ESSER funding. Meeting other needs, which is the next slide. I mentioned earlier we spent we're on track to spend about $3.4 million on these retention bonuses. The letters have gone out to all staff. You could get anywhere from 1,000 to 3,500, but we're really committed to trying to retain the teachers. And I want to thank all of them that have stayed here throughout, some of the toughest times that we've seen in education, period. The teachers that are in Holyoke and that have been here for a long time, they're here because they love Holyoke and because they love our students. And I just really appreciate you, love you, embrace you, and I hope that this bonus, while only $3,500, I hope that it's a token. You see it as a way of us really trying to value you and keep you in our system because you're good for our students and our families. We added about $6 million to school spending plans. So normally we give schools a certain amount of money that the principals can develop spending plans with, and with these ESSER fundings, we said, hey, look at these priorities that we have and build a spending plan. We gave them an extra $6 million, not extra, but in total they get $6 million of ESSER money that they can build into their spending plan. And we're committed to making over $7 million in facilities improvements. That goes anywhere from HVAC systems to new phone systems. One of the things that you look at Veritas's panorama data around their families, one of the things that is going to really help address that is, first of all, I think we have a really strong leader there, but they didn't have phone systems that teachers could actually call home to parents, that given the aging, the PEC building and all that. We want to make sure every single school has upgraded phone systems so that our teachers, they don't got to go to the main office to call families. They can use phones that actually work. And we've been neglecting our buildings from a capital improvement standpoint, things that can't be funded out of net school spending. But now we have an opportunity to make one-time investments that are going to have a long impact on our ability to meet our student needs. Entryway and outdoor spaces, at Sullivan, we're going to really improve that outdoor space and everywhere. If you drive by Sullivan, you've seen we cut down trees, we're fixing the sidewalks, things that have just been completely neglected for so many years. Now we have an opportunity to do it so that when you walk to a school, you have a sense of pride, okay, this is my school, not damn, look at this sidewalk, and why are there trees all in the way? There's no sunlight getting into so we're really making it a point to invest where we can, and getting at our one-to-one devices. Many of our school, let's just keep it real. When we came back, we didn't get all of our devices back when we came back to in-person learning, and that impacted some of our schools' ability to run basic interventions and do some really good things with students. We're going to get back on track, and we're using ESSER money to make sure we have a device for every single student in Holyoke Public Schools that needs it. Our upgrade to Dean, I know, this is one I hold near and dear to my heart. We have, we've been able to, with Perkins money, do little things here and there. We updated cosmetology a few years ago, but we're really looking at all of our shops and making sure that our students, that our shops actually have the equipment that our students need. and that reflect what's going on in the workforce, as opposed to like just using equipment that has been here from 1978 when the school. I think that she would probably know more than me when the school was built, but we're definitely making a significant investment in Dean and the shops, and then we also need to provide supports to transitioning to the middle school. We had a great meeting with the rezoning task force the other day. So there's going to be some things that we need to invest in to make sure we get to that elementary, middle, and high school model the next year. And I'm just going to ask Mickey to come off mic and walk us through the rest of this presentation. We just ask that because I want to be respectful of everybody's time, let's just get through the slide deck. It's a lot of information, and then we can come back for questions. I think if we stop for questions, we'll be here all night.
Yeah, I was gonna ask you to see if you still wanted to do that. Yeah, there's a ton of information in here, and Anthony and I could talk forever about the budget. So hopefully you can keep the questions, and I'll try to go through the content fast enough that we're not all overwhelmed by the number of details that we hit. So we're going to talk about balancing the budget, and every budget is basically revenue and expenses. And we're going to linger in the revenue world for a little bit because there's some big stories there. So we can go to slide 37, Mike. So here's the big story. The revenue increase is over 8%. And that's driven by the increase in the state's net school spending amount of just under 8%. That is unprecedented. It has to do with what Anthony talked about with the Student Opportunity Act becoming funded and phased in. There's some other factors that influence it. The state increased their inflation assumptions smartly, which also increases the total revenue. That's despite, if you see the small bullet point, a decrease in student enrollment. In most schools, a slight decrease in enrollment can really be a budget killer. So the impact of the Student Opportunity Act change in the state funding formulas is really significant. Now, there's a couple other big drivers on our revenue side. For charter schools, we both pay tuition on the expense side, and we receive reimbursement, all under state funding laws. We get the projected reimbursements and the tuition expenses from the state. The projected reimbursement is up by more than 100%. So it's more than double what they're anticipating. Now, the net is about the same because the projected expenses are up by over $1.3 million. And we'll get to that slide in a little bit. Transportation funding, we want to linger on that, and I'll linger on that in the next slide. And then just go back 1 second there, Mike, if you could. So last year, one thing you'll notice if you get to the details on some of the budget slides is that last year we used some of the federal COVID relief money or the ESSER money to supplement and balance the budget. This year, we balanced the budget without that extra fund. So that increase in revenue from the state really made a big difference. All right, Mike, we can go to 38. So transportation is a pretty good story, and this is one where this happened before I got involved, but Anthony was working with the city council to allow us to extend existing contracts with our transportation providers. And we really think it made a huge difference. So transportation is both a revenue and an expense on our budget because the cost of transportation is outside of the required net school spending amount. And so whatever our costs are is additional revenue from the city to the school district. Well, the overall change in transportation costs are going to decrease for next year if all of our assumptions hold. And the big reason why is that the city council approved us to extend the existing contracts with the bus providers. And we're really confident that had we had to go out to bid for this year and next year, we would have been facing big increases. So this allows us to have some cost control and some cost certainty for 2 years, these post-pandemic years with a lot of uncertainty, and go out to bid after we have a a more accurate baseline. So kudos to everybody involved in granting that extension. So we can go to slide 39. So there we are, 39. So this is some of the basics on the Student Opportunity Act law. So this was passed several years ago, and it was something very long in the making in the state. Everybody who was involved in school funding knew that there had to be corrections under the state funding formulas because certain areas were vastly underfunded compared to the costs that school districts experienced. And you see that in the last bullet point. And essentially, to try to more accurately provide revenue for students who need additional supports, and the district's costs to provide those supports are higher. And in a district like Holyoke, that adds up to a lot of money. So we can go on to slide 40. And this is a long-term, we just went back a while to show the required net school spending amount, so the basic amount that the state says this is what the school district must be funded at, going back 13 years. And you can see a huge change in the trajectory. Mike, you can hit, I think, probably twice to bring in the rates. So you'll see that over that year, those years of fiscal year 2014 through 2019, barely any increase at all. That's tough budgeting. When your revenue barely goes up, your costs do go up. And so I've been in school budgets now for 25 years. And as a principal, 23 of those years were, okay, how much money are you going to cut? And that's the reality. Now, that change in the trajectory from 22 through a projected 25, it's not guaranteed we're going to get that. If the state financial picture looks as good as it does right now, the state revenues have been extremely high relative to their projections before the pandemic. If they stay that way, we would project that we'd be in that 116 million range in 25. Really allows a lot of things that the district has not been able to do. And Anthony talked about using the federal COVID money to accelerate the Student Opportunity Act. This is a good place to see it. If you look at that bar for fiscal year 23, next school year, the 101.6 million, that's the required net school spending amount the state set. We are strategically using the federal COVID money to increase core spending on teachers, on paraprofessionals, on other high-impact needs to get towards that 116 million. So we project that we're going to be there in a couple years. There's no reason to wait. Let's use the funding that we have from this very unusual period of school funding to get there sooner. And that's what he's talking about. All right, let's go on. So on the expenses side, probably the highlight here is the first bullet point. So when we added up all of the things we decided to do through that very collaborative process that Anthony talked about, almost all of the increase in our revenue is going into our salaries. So we're really investing the increased revenue in our people because we all know those are it's our educators in the schools in front of the children that make the difference, the kids. You'll see a couple other bullet points in there that we'll talk a little bit more later, but the health insurance and the retired health insurance, those are much smaller increases than we see in some years, and we'll hit that a little bit more later. And then you can see the charter tuition up 10.9%. So even though reimbursements are coming back, the costs that the state's projecting are going up by as much. So we can go on, Mike, to the big slide of this is what we call the budget blueprint, which is all of the complicated high-level expense and revenue lines that Anthony and I spend a ton of time working from. And we're going to break down into a couple slides that are smaller and more viewable. So why don't we go to 43? So this is a slide that shows some of the interaction between the required net school spending amount that the state sets. That's the first line, the 101 million. And then some adjustments of the other big impacts, and we get to an adjusted net school spending amount. And then those next three lines, led by the transportation number, are expenses that are beyond net school spending. And so our total operating budget for next year will be $113.4 million. Now the net is 103 because those two lines at the bottom, the insurance, that's largely health insurance, but other insurances are included in there, and the retirement contributions live on the city books, not on our books, and so that's why that's different. All right, we can go to the next slide. I think I basically talked. Well, this slide is when the city looks at the budget for the schools. This is what the numbers will look like, right? With salaries and expenses and then some big high level numbers that 3 of them come straight from the state. Okay. All right, let's go on. So as we develop the budget, we do so before the final numbers are known. So we can just go to the next slide, Mike. And these, let's see if we get, we didn't lose it. So the first bullet point is probably the easiest place to start, that the state hasn't finished its budget process yet. And so the district always has to set our budget before the state numbers are final. As we're going to see a little bit later, and I think that you've heard this before, we're highly dependent on the state budget. And so therefore, if the state makes changes between the point where they were at in the budget process, which was the House Ways and Means Committee budget, and the final budget that gets signed, that will have an influence on us. But assuming that is equal or very close, and these other assumptions that we make are there, we feel like we'll be on track with this budget. All right, why don't we go on to slide 48. So here's some highlights on the budget. One more, Mike. Thank you. So this first bullet point is one that is critical to make, and why we're so interested in what happens with the rest of the state budget process. So the great majority of the revenue for the state, for the district, comes from state aid, 88%. And only 11% comes from local taxation. Now, we'll see a couple slides later where you'll see where we sit. The Holyoke is one of 15 communities in the state that are funded at or below the minimum required net school spending amount. That's not the norm in the state. The norm is the average is 28.7% above. The numbers are really pretty stunning in some districts, how much more money they kick in. If we had that average, that would be another $27 million, a really significant, we're talking about 27% more than the existing budget. And that's with a much better budget number from the state than we've ever had before. So go to the next slide, Mike. This is a really easy, visible way to see it. 88.3% of the district funds come from the state. 11.6% from local taxation. Mike, one more. Thank you. And this is that slide or a visual of that other bullet point, that we're one of very few districts that have that are funded at or below. We have a very low percentage of our budget comes from local taxation relative to other districts in the state. All right. We can go on to 51. Now, 51 is going to start a series of slides where we break out the budget into some components. I'll talk briefly about each one. If you have questions, just kind of put a little note and come back to it. This is the distribution of our overall budget. You can see the great majority goes to schools directly. And some of those bigger pie slices, pupil services or special education, and that much of that spending is also lives in the schools themselves. And then the other huge big pie slice, strategy turnaround, enrollment transportation, is the transportation for getting students to the school. So, and then even a lot of the operations technology budget is getting technology into the schools. And so it's not that 65% of the spending is actually in the schools. A much higher percentage of that is in the schools. What we have the other pie slices broken out on is within which leader within Anthony's cabinet is in charge of those spending items and in charge of that budget. So now we'll go through and break those down in a little bit more detail. Go ahead to the next slide. This is the numbers behind that first slide, but in dollars and a change from last year to this year. If you have questions about any of these, we can talk about the details. And now we're going to go into a little bit about each one of these pie slices. All right, go ahead, Mike. So here's the academics pie slice. So overall, the academics and school leadership pie slice accounts for 3% of the overall school budget. And this is how it's divided out. A lot of stuff happens here. And Mike, if we go to the next slide, I'll just highlight one thing. Back one, yeah, right there. You'll see that that early education line is a really significant increase. That's because we made the decision to continue to invest in our pre-K education despite a big grant expiring, and we use some of this increase in the general fund revenue to absorb that cost and commit to continuing all of the pre-K classrooms that we've had. All right, go ahead down to operations technology. So you can see that the facilities actually involves quite a bit of stuff. And as we go to the next slide, this is how our budget book will break it out. It's a little misleading to see the technology decline. Well, remember that we've made strategic decisions on how to use that federal COVID money. One of the strategies that Anthony had highlighted was using it to get one-to-one devices. So we were able to use the temporary federal funds of COVID to get a lot of technology. So it's not that we're reducing our overall investment in technology. It just we didn't have to use the general fund to do so. We can go to the next slide. So in any school district, pupil services or special education is a big cost driver. And here's a breakout of those costs. And one that Anthony and I spend a lot of time talking about and trying to monitor is that out-of-district tuition. So students who attend special schools outside of Holyoke, and is a big dollar amount. We can go to the next slide, Mike. Compare the last year to this year. You can see some changes there in related services went up by a fairly big chunk of money, and then the special ed services went up by a chunk of money. Those are also related to some high-need student programs, and some of our partners had, during the pandemic, frozen their rates of support that they on services they provide, and now it's okay. We have to increase our rates, and that's what's driving many of those. We also have attempted to the hiring challenges around certain categories like psychologists, speech and language pathologists, especially challenging, and we're doing some strategies to try to increase our capacity there. All right, Mike, we can go to turnaround. So this is the areas of the budget that our chief of turnaround and strategy oversee. You can see that the great majority of that is the transportation number. All right, so that lives within our enrollment center. And an example of where a lot of the other of the money that's tagged in central office leaders' budgets actually is really directly related to schools and students at schools. We can go to the next slide, Mike. Here's a comparison between last year and this year. Now, you'll see that first line, a big increase. That is also a change in grant money. So we've had grant money from the state for turnaround that has gradually declined, and we are absorbing costs that used to be paid for on that grant into the general fund. So exactly what Anthony was talking about with using the ESSER money now and being able to absorb those costs into the general fund because our revenue is rising. That's a perfect example of what we've done this year with that line. All right, we can go. They actually are probably the most boring budgets in the thing, but the department that I'm in charge of, finance, and the HR budget, kind of core functionality, pretty small dollars as it's related to school functioning, and much of that $1 million that's in finance is really assessments that are straight from the state and related to services outside of the district. All right, so we're going to go through a couple of the big cost drivers and just show you some visuals of things changing it, and I'll go pretty quick, and then Anthony can share some thoughts. So we all are aware of inflation's impact on our personal finances, and the impact will be there on our school finances as well. And so we're projecting an increase in the average teacher salary for next year, and rightly so. Go ahead, Mike 1. Now, healthcare has been in past years an outsized driver of school budget change. And so when healthcare costs go up by a lot, it results in more budget cuts in terms of positions because the costs have increased for the exact same number of people. Right now, the city is projecting a very small increase in healthcare, and that's helping us out quite a bit. All right, we can go on, Mike. So here is a little bit about charter school trends. Mike, go ahead and hit the button one more time, 2 more times. All right, right there. So this is what I think is fascinating about the charter school impact on our budget. So down below in that yellow box is the number of students enrolled from Holyoke in charter schools, and it's gone down every year since 2017 and projected by the state to go down again next year. Yet, the costs are going up. Now, that's very much related to the same reason why our budget is going up. The Student Opportunity Act assumptions have increased the revenue going to other places as well. And so, despite that drop, students projected to be enrolled, our costs are going up. All right, we can go on. So, one of the other impacts are school choice. So, students have the right to choice into Holyoke or choice to go elsewhere. And so, these are the number of students who have choiced out to other schools and choiced in to other schools. And we've actually had 2 different numbers the state gave us, and one number showed a decline in projected in enrolled in sending out for this year. And what they said is basically the pandemic has had some unusual effects on school choice across the state, that school choice had increased. And you can see up until then it basically increased both the blue and the orange lines. But there's something about the pandemic has affected that, and so we're going to see what really comes out. I think that we have to sort of see what our baseline is going to be after this next year. Okay, out of district tuition, big impact on us, and you can see that the overall number has increased steadily. Circuit breaker is the state's revenue source to try to help districts with students whose the cost of educating those students is extremely high, and so that has increased some with it, allowing us to keep the impact on the general fund from increasing quite as much. All right, we can go on. All right, so that's a lot of numbers and trends.
Yeah. Thank you.
And I think Anthony can sum up his thoughts on it, and then whatever questions folks have.
Good job, Mickey. You did way better job than that last CFO we had.
Yeah, I know everybody's saying that. Yeah.
No, I hate to sound like a broken record, but I'm going to say it again. I firmly believe the things that we're investing in with this money are what has been missing and what is definitely needed in Holyoke. That, you know, the Student Opportunity Act highlighted that we didn't have enough money in communities like that to be able to have academic intervention teachers, better coaching, and more ELL supports and all that. So I just want to double down and say that that's been my theme right now, is how we're using the money strategically to be able to make long-term impact for students. And then how, like, aligned, on the next slide, you can see how aligned our principles were to what our core 3 strategies are. You could see here, this is a picture, literally a picture of one of our budget sessions at Ian White, where they had their leadership team. She basically took her budget and she threw it away. And she said, forget what we had last year. Like, how can I develop a plan that's going to improve literacy, that's going to have more teacher collaboration and planning, that's going to have more in-classroom supports for our ELL and special ed students. And she literally went through a design process to say, like, which is what's been missing in Holyoke. We didn't have an instructional design. Like, how do we want to design the schools? I want to, like, shout out all of our principals that like took that approach and went through that process. And I'll unfortunately, like, match that with, I'm concerned in our ability to be able to fill some of the positions that they added to support this instructional design. But I'm happy that they did it. They were intentional in how they're using their funding and how they want their school to look to support students. We're going back and asking them, like, look, this was really aggressive, really good job. What's going to happen if you can't fill these positions? How are you going to still meet the needs of our students? So that's going to be a next step in the process, but really appreciate what they came up with. And my closing reflections are really around the Student Opportunity Act and how we're using ESSER funding and the alignment. And then, like I just said, you know, I feel like this, I was talking before I got to the slide, but I really want to make sure that people understand that my concern around.
Like, go ahead and hit the button one more time, bring in that
Yeah.
the uncertainties part. Yeah.
The uncertainties part, like I said, we just had a hiring fair where we normally have over 100 teachers. We only had 8 show up, so that's super concerning to me. And we want to continue to put pressure on the state to fund the Student Opportunity Act. They've done a great job so far in like saying they were going to do it and actually doing it. We saw that in our $7 million increase. And I'm really happy that the budget that we have in front of you today reflects a collaborative process with the same vision in mind, as just doing right by students and making sure that the students are at the forefront of all of the decisions we made in putting this budget together. So that concludes our presentation. I'm sure there's a lot of questions, but now's a good time to take them.
All right. Ms. Brunel?
When does the state finalize their budget?
Around early
July
July.
1?
Yeah, early July is the norm.
Yeah. It goes through, it goes through House, then Senate, then Conference Committee, and then the governor has an opportunity to veto it, but I haven't seen where he vetoed it before. But usually once it hits Conference Committee June 30th, the governor just signs it the next day.
It won't be radically different. That required net school spending amount is the linchpin, and that will stay.
Mr. Wallahan?
Thank you for the presentation. It was very educational.
Overly detailed.
Detailed, educational. Thank you. I mean, it's good news that the state is finally recognizing that they weren't funding the gateway cities in a fair manner. Most of the money, you said that there's a 7% increase in salaries, which is good. I mean, the inflation rate right now is 7%, so that's
and
that's
that
kind of a par.
that 7% is a combination of increased positions and increased salary projections
okay,
per positions.
okay,
Yeah,
okay.
that includes both.
Okay, thank you. And just to kind of piggyback on what Mr. Soto said, I'm just kind of making sure that we can obtain the obtain the new positions. You know, the new teachers and the counselors. I was worried about that, because I kind of think that funding sort of is crucial to your plan. So just to have the right staff either in place that's retained, and then to attract new talent. So that's important. I think I just want to make one last comment. Just the fact that most people are not aware that the state funds 88% of our budget. So we're kind of dependent on the state funding for our resources. Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Willingham. Mr. Collmore?
Excuse me, yes. Just looking over this here, and you have a decrease in supplies and services. Does this mean that come October, November, teachers are going to start to coming to school committee members or to their parents and things, what's happening? We don't have any paper products to send home our students with homework and things like this, or pencils or things like this. This happened quite a few years ago, that supplies ran so low that we had to go to a capital improvement plan to try to get some money to supplement this and get this straightened out.
That will not happen. And if it does, Mr. Collmore, you call me right away, and we'll get to the bottom of it. As I said, the principals develop the budget. I think the majority of that decrease is the fact that we don't have Veritas anymore as like operating one of our schools. We're actually operating the school ourselves without giving them a management fee. In addition to like just different decisions that principals are making, some of the principals, since we've given them $6 million in ESSER funding, they could have easily said, you know what, I'm going to fund all my supplies on this ESSER fund, and like this is what I want on our general fund. But like there is plenty of money in schools' budgets for general classroom supplies, and I'm going to pull my hair out if anyone comes to you and says there's no money for supplies, because that is the furthest thing from the truth.
And Mr. Collmore, you got to also remember that this is everything we presented is only the general fund revenue that's available. Schools also have funds available that are part of the ESSER money, and so it the mix of ESSER and general fund, there is more of both salary funds available and supply funds available. I'm very confident that that won't be the case.
Another thing is there any change in the transportation contract, or is it just...
It went down, Mr. Collmore. So we were able to get the city council to approve extending the contract for another 2 years. And what I told the city council was, like, if we go out to bid right now, we're going to see a 20% increase because it's happening across the state. But if I'm able to negotiate with the company to extend our contract for 2 more years, I can comfortably guarantee you that we'll come out at like a 3 or 4% increase. So we did that. They allowed us to do it. They extended it to a 5-year contract, which allowed me to negotiate. But as part of the negotiation, what we also did was we took on the routing ourselves.
Okay,
We used to have them do the routing, and now we said, you know what, we're going to do the routing. And we were able to find some efficiencies in like how we start a school at one time and how many. Because the way we get charged for buses is for each bus, we get that bus for 2 hours in the morning and 2 hours in the afternoon. 2 hours is plenty of time to go pick up some students, bring them to school, and then go pick up some more students and bring them to another school that starts later. And without doing the routing ourselves, we didn't have access to be able to see if there were some efficiencies to gain there. So we did both of those things. We got an extension to the contract, and we took over the routing, and we're seeing a decrease from last year's transportation budget to this upcoming year's.
Now, I don't know if we've talked about this, but we've been talking about it for years. Capital improvements, capital money in a certain budget for capital improvements. Our vehicles, anything that comes down the road that is a necessity at that time. We've been lacking over the years of getting these things done. Is there any talk about capital budget?
There is. Any capital improvement we have to make with the ESSER funding, we get approval from the state, and I think we've gotten approval for like $6 million or $8 million. So I think it's in the slide presentation. But this still goes to say, Mr. Collmore, the capital improvement, anything over $125,000 is the city's responsibility and cannot count towards net school spending. We are taking advantage of this ESSER funding for now, but I'm very hopeful that with our new mayor, he's talked about putting together long-term financial planning, and I know that he's committed to schooling. What we've done in the past is we put in capital requests and we send them to the city, and nothing happens unless there's like MSBA support for accelerated repair or anything like that. But as far as like replacing different things, like we still have to work through the city. And I'm really hopeful that with the new mayor and the council and the financial forecasting that they're doing, that we could really have an honest conversation about here's our capital needs as a district, and please support it.
Okay, now let's go to out of school placements. Is there any way we can devise to bring some of these students back into our city rather than be shipping them out at tremendous cost? I look at this all the time and see all these costs of transportation to this city, transportation, and this isn't just transportation from Holyoke to Greensboro. We're even transporting out of state for students. I think there's some way we can start thinking about bringing them back. If we have empty space in some of our school buildings or something like that, set up a program where, we can bring these students back here and save on transportation, save on staffing and things like this.
So with all due respect, Mr. Collmore, I just told Anthony, hold off, because I'm going to answer this one. As a parent who has a student in out of district, until the district can provide a therapeutic intervention program that can definitely address the needs for my child cannot come back to the Holyoke Public Schools, because obviously they failed at it. So they had to find out of district placement where it was intensive therapeutic intervention programs. So the reason we get to that point is because Holyoke couldn't provide that service. And as I spoke with Mr. Soto in regards to the TIP program, remember years ago when the district decided to make Lawrence School the Center for Excellence? You remember that? Illegally, because you can't segregate children who have mental health disabilities, and call it a separate classroom. That was a civil rights issue. We were segregating students that were suffering from mental health and trying to put them all in one location. So you had to close it down. At that time, I wasn't even on the school committee, but I saw the need, and we had asked, why not apply to build your own therapeutic intervention school? So what we kind of send our students out to, day schools, whatever. So that way we can even have students from other districts come in if they have to have a 45-day eval. The response to it was, it's a 100-page application. That's not my problem. That's a district problem. Figure out how to fill it out. But that's a need that this district requires. So if you expect to get these students back, you got to put in the work and really create a program that parents are bringing their, having their children go to, because obviously we couldn't do it here. So if it's the May Institute, if it's Neary, the old Tri-County, but that one's gone. There's so many different places. And if we could have developed that model here, I'm sure we could have kept our children within this district, even though it would be considered a separate day school. So when it comes to finding ways to bring them back, there ain't no bringing them back. The prices are going to keep going up. So either we need to start looking at creating our own day school and applying for it, or we're just going to keep having more students being placed out of district. And reason being, mental health concerns are going up. They ain't coming down.
Yeah, and I'll add that if there was a way to do that, Mr. Collmore, we would. I mean, we've had situations where there were students ready to come back, and we've gone through that process and embraced them through like the Success Center at Opportunity Academies or Lighthouse or Gateway to College. So there's just some students, I'll give like Willie Ross, for example. They run a program for students who are deaf, right, or students who are blind. There's no way that Holyoke as a school district can support. They're better supported at a school like Willie Ross that's designed to meet the needs for them. But I wouldn't say that like once a student goes out of district, that we don't like evaluate whether or not they can come back. We do go through a process, but the reality is we need to keep it real around like what programs we offer here and what's best for the individual student, and if it is in the best interest for that student to continue to be in an out-of-district placement because it's working for them and it's working for the family, then like we fully support that. We want what's best for our students, and if that's an out-of-district placement, to me that's the last place we look. We try to meet their needs here first, and the last thing we want to do is put them in a more restricted environment. We want them to be with their peers. We want them to, but unfortunately, like, there's, we're not always going to be able to do that.
Anthony, if I had one thing related, so having led Opportunity Academy for the last many years, I totally agree, and I've talked with Mildred several times about that situation. Once a student gets to really high need, it's got to be a very individual basis on what's the best thing for that child. One hidden budget thing, though, that most people wouldn't realize is that we're developing new collaborative tools between the special ed department and the finance team to try to really get a tight track so we can do projections on where the costs are going. We've analyzed over the past 6 years of all the students who get placed into an out-of-district placement, 40% of those students come to us from another district already in that placement. So it's a very complicated area of the budget, a very complicated area of the special ed programming management, and some of it is not. We haven't been able to meet their needs in our schools. We actually, as a student moves into the city, and they're already in one of these placements, and that's a pretty good percentage. 40% of all the students who have gone to a placement in out of district, that on average each year for the last 6 years has been from another district.
My last thing here is cafeteria. Have we looked at other ways to improve or help our students get proper nutrition that is needed?
Yeah, I mean, we've done student focus groups, we've done staff focus groups. We just went through a competitive bid process where 3 or 4 different vendors were able to propose coming to Holyoke and improving the quality of the program. That's one of the things that we, I've been adamant. There was a time where, Chartwell's was in Holyoke and it was a funding issue. The account was negative. We got to a point where, now that's not the case anymore. So we really want to focus on improving the quality of the food service programming that we have. So we just need to continue to work with the people managing the food service account, continue to work with our students who need to be able to voice, what are the things they like, what are the things that they don't like, and just hold them accountable to that.
One of my biggest concerns is I see a lot of waste.
Yeah.
The students get up from their table. The custodians come and pick up all this stuff and throw it in the trash. Well, I know we can't use it again, but before it even goes out there, is the student going to eat it?
Yeah. Unfortunately, there's federal guidelines on what a reimbursable meal is, and everything that we presented today, none of that money goes towards food service because it's also one of those things that's not net school spending eligible, and we get funding from the federal reimbursement food service program, and as part of it, you have to have certain components in your meal, which one of them happens to be a milk, right? Even if a student doesn't want the milk, we are obligated to give it to them in order to comply with the federal regulation. So it has to have a certain amount of grain, certain amount of protein, certain amount of fruit. So we try to we try to work with our students and figure out how could we meet all those components that make up a federally reimbursable meal, but do it in a way that's palatable to our students, right? Give them things they like, but there's certain things that some kids don't want milk. They don't want the milk we're giving them, or they might not want the grain that's on there. So it doesn't we still have to give it to them in order to support the program. But I'm definitely committed to continuing to make sure that our that the people that are operating the food service program continue to get input from our students in developing the menu and trying to find that right balance between what the federal guidelines, what's healthy, and then what our students want, and then finding that the balance of those 3 things. I don't think we're ever going to get it 100% right, but we could definitely do better and make sure that our students are a part of that process.
Okay, I know it's getting really late, so I've got a few more people. I know the people that haven't spoken yet.
Let's skip mine. Okay.
Are you sure, Miss Hensley Williams?
Well, not really, but
then go ahead. You were next.
Okay. if we cannot meet the students' needs, that does not come under choicing out, does it? If we can't meet their need, they have to go, like Mr. Fave just said, someplace else. So that doesn't come under when a person choice out. That's not the same.
Yeah, that's different. Out of district special education, out of district placements are different from a family school choice. That goes through an application process. These are, they're students that we try to work with and meet their IEP needs. And if we feel that, and the family feels, it's a mutual decision. It's not like just a one-sided decision. If we feel that that's an out-of-district placement is what's best for that individual student to meet their needs.
My other question is, the ESSER federal COVID money, do we have a deadline that's when to spend that money? Because I know you're going to spend it now on things that we need to use it for.
End of the following year.
We have
so
a
not
year?
next year, the end of the following school year. We have through the summer to spend ESSER 3, which is the biggest one.
Okay. And the $7 million SOA, the $7 million, that was the increase that we got?
That's an increase on the general fund, yeah. So
what was it
the
before the
did,
$7 million? What was it before? About?
I think it was it went from
94 million.
Yep.
Last year was the required spending level the state set to 101 million this year.
Great. Okay.
What they did is they're just giving us more funding for our students that are economically disadvantaged, and so that's why, like, a community, I'll use Long Meadow as an example. They didn't get any Student Opportunity Act money because they don't have students that are economically disadvantaged overall. Like, a lot of Student Opportunity Act went to communities like Holyoke that have
We did it. Yeah, we
that,
need it.
that need it more.
Yeah.
Right.
Thank you.
Ms. Wilson.
I'll be short, promise. First of all, I have to apologize to Mr. Soto. I did find that the date did go out on the 9th. I was incorrect, so I want to publicly acknowledge that I was incorrect. Second of all, when I look at slide number on page 58, I guess my question is about school psychologists, that we're going down in the budget, but I would actually expect our needs to be going up. Based upon initial evaluations, reevaluations, and I'm just trying to understand how we can be going down when I know that we're outsourcing that right now, and is that the plan going forward to outsource, and which so then we're almost double our costs?
So, I can address that it essentially is a shift in strategy on how to meet that need from salaried positions that we've been unable to fill to an increase in the amount of money to contract out for those services. So it ends up showing up into the special ed services line there instead.
Special ed services line?
Yeah, so it
Okay.
appears as if psychologist services are going down, but really it's just we've been unable to fill positions, and so therefore, instead of trying to continue and hope that we're able to fill, we've made the strategic decision, Marianne Courier and her team, to say, okay, look, we need to acknowledge that this is not likely to be able to be filled this coming year, and let's push more money into the contract service so we can set those contracts now.
Mm-hmm. And on a note, as a city as a whole, I hope that going forward for healthcare costs that our city looks at to GIC insurance goes through the state rather than the funding we do now, because we know our costs are higher because we are not involved with GIC. So I hope that we are considering that for the next go round.
Yeah, I know I've had conversations with the mayor about it, and I know that Councilor Jourdain is heavily involved with Kelly Curran, their director of human resources, and I think that if that's, I think that between the two of them and the mayor's team, I'm pretty sure if that is going to be beneficial to the city, that they're going to make a recommendation for the following year, not this year.
That is right. Can you guys hear me?
We can hear you, Mayor Garcia.
Hey, everybody. Sorry for joining in late. We had our first budget hearing for our city budget. But just to add to this, we are targeting fiscal year 24 to be the transition dates from our current existing health network to whether it's the GIC or Maya. From what I've learned, it takes a great deal of time to be, because our fiscal year doesn't line up necessarily with the health insurance fiscal years. And so what we're trying to do on our end, first understand, what the benefits are, if any, whichever is the most advantageous for the city, that we start initiating that process with the target goal of implementation by July 1 of 24.
Great, thank you. That closes out the, maybe not. Mr. Wallahan.
Real quick. Yeah, thank you for everyone. So there's going to be a budget hearing on this data and information. It'll be before our next meeting in June, like an hour before our next meeting. So me and Mr. Soto will schedule that time, and the public's invited to it. And
yeah, we will have a public hearing. It's going to be the same day as the school committee meeting. We will be advertising it 2 weeks in advance. And then 48 hours before that meeting, we're also going to have the budget, the final budget book that you guys get with much more detailed information, or we'll have that available for the public to view at 57 Suffolk Street on both of our floors. So anybody from the public that wants to weigh in or wants to comment on the budget, they'll have an opportunity to view it 48 hours before. Obviously, a lot of what we put together here is going to be in that budget book, but I'm a firm believer that a budget really is about what we value as a community, and it tells a story. It's not just a collective numbers, and I think that our budget document process really does that. We'll have it available for the public, and then we'll have that public hearing on the 13th, I believe, but we'll advertise that for the
okay, great, community. Thank you. And just to kind of piggyback on what Mr. Calmer said regarding the lack of a capital improvement plan. Okay, the city doesn't have one of those. Okay, it's not a new concept, correct? Okay, that ship hasn't landed in Holyoke, but it's not a new concept. That came out when the city council was looking for financial information from our auditor and whether or not the city can afford the new middle school. And they're talking about financing and forecasting. And one of the things she said is, you don't have a capital improvement program. One strike against you. Okay, so in terms of planning and moving forward, and I'm sure that Mayor Garcia, he knows that that's a concept that we haven't embraced, and I'm certain he's gonna move our city forward with that. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Wallahan. The only other thing was the COVID-19, but that's FYI. It's in the packet. Just giving us the numbers up to date. So did anybody have any specific questions on that? We all know that it's starting to tick back up, It is. So, just take precautions. Hand washing. Don't breathe in if somebody sneezes next to you. Cough. Mr. Kennedy.
Yeah, I was just wondering if the school district had a plan in case we have to go remote learning again, because I know that last year or the year before in March, it was a complete surprise, and I think that the way it was handled was pretty well with a 2-week notice. But now that we kind of see this cases going up and we see the reality of the virus, do we have a plan in case we have to slide back into remote learning?
Yeah, I think that's a great question, Mr. Kennedy. So thank you for asking that. I think that there was a lot of lesson. We do have a plan, but I think that in the event we needed to, we have a really solid foundation on what to build on, and history helps us know what we could do better. I think it's highly unlikely for us to be in a position where the state's imposing remote learning. They've been pretty clear that, like, despite these upticks, they're not going to impose any state mandated remote learning, and in fact, they're not even counting, like, they're discouraging remote learning for districts. If you want to do it, you have to go through an application process and prove that it's a need in your community. But they don't get approved easily. So I would say that we're better prepared than what we were when it happened. And there's a lot that we could learn from having lived through it. So I appreciate your question for sure.
Thank you so much for that. So I can understand it if we don't get to that, but I also see where we do, we are faltering in a way, because some students end up having to go in quarantine several times, right? Because either someone was exposed in their home or tested positive, or the student themselves tested positive. And then are they shifting into remote learning? No, they're just out sick. And so then they got to come back. And so we're going to start seeing the effects of that. And I think not just Holyoke, but the state in general, the commissioner, the Board of Education needs to say sometimes we have to go into that hybrid for that student to continue learning so they're not left behind when they come back. Right? Everybody assumes that by day 5 you are negative, you're feeling great. Not everybody is fine at day 5 to come back at day 6. Some will take that 14, and some might be just unfortunate and take longer. So we really need to come up with better plans, because at the end of the day, like I keep saying, if our students aren't showing, right, the improvements on the scores, because that's what they're looking at the state level, it's a reflection on us, right? Like, we're not doing what we need to do. Well, we're actually preventing them from continuing the education when they're out sick. You know, if they're able to attend hybrid, then they should be able to attend it hybrid. Not the 2-hour tutor, if you guys offer that. Well, anyways, we're going to move along. There's nothing for new business, but for ongoing business, updates from subcommittees. Mr. Wellahan, you just gave us the update. Great. That's from the Budget Committee. And then I have from Ms. Brunel, all her subcommittees.
Yeah, so the Joint School Committee, City Council will be meeting on May 26th at 6:30 here. It's our session to host, so the meeting will be here. I would just like to remind school committee members that this isn't just a chance for city councilors to file orders for us, that we also can bring anything that we want to discuss with city council to the table as well. So maybe the fact that we fund schools at a minimum spending in the city. Maybe we want to discuss the fact that we are going to encourage them to move forward the school building money. So just keeping that in mind, I have the privilege of chairing that on the school committee side. So if anybody ever has anything that they want added to the agenda, excuse me, you can let me know. And then on the side note to that, the school building committee, the next meeting is June 9th. It was moved back a week because it conflicted with Dean's graduation, Dean Campus's graduation. So that next meeting is going to be June 9th. Recently, we toured Peck School. As you all should know by now, that MSBA approved us to move into the next processes. So we're basically just waiting on the ed plan for the district, and then things will really start getting amped up on the school building committee. But yeah, June 9th is our next one if anybody cares to attend. We're going to be going to the city council to get some formality votes approved shortly. What are the dates for that, Anthony? Do we know? Which one? June 9th is at 6 o'clock. It's a hybrid meeting currently. No, they're not here. So in person is in central office. If you wanted to attend in person, you just need to let us know because we have a maximum occupancy capacity. But it is on Zoom as well. So you could email myself or Erin Linville to get the Zoom link to attend our school building committee meetings. The one for the 26th, the joint school committee city council, is at 6:30, and that is here in person.
Oh, Mr. Wallahan.
Thank you. Mr. Kalmer and myself, we attended the PEC walkthrough last week. Thank you.
There's going to be another one as well that they're coordinating with the entire city council. I don't know. I have thoughts, but I'll keep them to myself. I don't know the dates of the next tour. Keeping in mind, you know, we can tour a building whenever we'd like. You know, if you get in touch with the superintendent or the principal over at the building, I'm sure you could see the building. But yeah, there will be another official tour for school committee members, school building committee members, and city council members that Aaron Linville's coordinating.
Great. Thank you. Okay, well, we're going to move on to our final chapter, which is announcements. Cough one more time. Just do it. You guys will see something live on Channel 15. Do you have any announcements? I know I do. Two very important. I need to know who is going to be at the graduations this year. So June 2nd is the dean graduation at 5:30 p.m. Yep, that's coming up real quick. 5:30. And then the Holyoke High School North Campus is going to be at 12 o'clock on June 5th. They started it earlier, just in case it rains like it does every year. Maybe we can speed it up before the rain showers come in.
We had to reprint so many.
Yeah. So please make sure June 5th for Holyoke High School North Campus, noontime, 12 p.m. And then June 2nd, Dean, 5:30. And that'll be here. Please let me know if you're coming so we can have, okay, great. So I got a couple people that are already confirming.
Yeah.
All right, awesome. Okay, so that, and then there were some more that if you wanted to go through them, the last. Are we going to class day? Are we invited?
My niece is speaking, so I'm going.
We're also having, you know, we're kicking off our equity and anti-racism steering committee. Our first meeting is going to be tomorrow from 4 to 6. That is a steering committee meeting. It's not one that's just available for the public, but I think it's important to know that we're really reviving that committee, and we're really looking to have a multi-year strategy come out of that and an equity audit come out of it. I'm really happy that we're getting that work started because it's so important. And then we have a DPAC meeting. We have a DPAC meeting on 5/17 as well. I want to confirm because I went all the way to June in my calendar. So I don't know. So the CPAC meeting is Wednesday the 18th, and the DPAC meeting was rescheduled to Wednesday the 25th. All right?
This month.
Of this month, yes.
Great. And then, Mayor Garcia, I did see your hand up real quick, and then it disappeared. So I wasn't sure if you still had something to share.
Nope, just was confirming that I'll be at the graduation. That's all.
Oh, okay. Whew, I'm a little bit slow. I was like, oh, he's got a question. All righty. So.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Mr. Collomore?
Yes. Let me first thank the school committee here tonight for making history. Because back in 1946, this school committee made history by voting to have a junior college system here in the city of Holyoke. And we ought to be very, very proud that you look in the paper this week, it's been 75 years since we've had a junior college system here in the city of Holyoke, and we never lost it. and it's so very important that we never lose it. And we ought to send a letter to President
Christina Royale.
Chris, and thanking her and all the staff for an excellent job they've been doing over the years. We should be very proud here in the city of Holyoke for allowing this to happen, because back then it was tough times getting the city council, the state legislature to approve a new school, because on a date of 1968, Holyoke High School burned to the ground, which at that time was the Holyoke Community College building. But we, school committee, started this whole program by allowing professors and things to open up classrooms here at Dean, here at the annex at Holyoke High School and things like this. And now it's expanded to our beautiful building on Homestead Avenue. And we ought to really be very, very proud of the city of Holyoke for doing that.
Thank you, Mr. Collmore, for all that. It's awesome. Awesome to hear. So I'm going to entertain a motion. I was so close.
I'm sorry.
That's like, well, yes, go ahead.
I'm going to make it quick. You guys know I am a comedian. I will be out of town from the 19th until the 30th of this month. My grandson is graduating from high school. I'm going to Anderson, Alabama, and he's going into the Navy directly after. So I hope I can do this. This is for all of the kids that's graduating.
Oh, that's awesome. I thought you were going to read a poem from it. I'm sorry. That's really cute. Is that a 2-minute song? Okay. Oh, Mr. Collmore.
Just before we leave, before we come back, Memorial Day.
Yes.
Everyone start thinking about what you're going to do on Memorial Day. There's going to be ceremonies here in the city of Holyoke, and try to attend one of these functions, because it's so important to keep these traditions going in the city.
Absolutely.
On that note, could we get an email with all of those dates we just
talked about?
All those meetings, all those graduations, all those services. Can we get a quick email with like?
Yeah, I don't have.
Send us your schedule, Anthony.
I mean, we could send you it was in the school committee presentation. We could resend that in an email. The dates, but I don't know of the events that Mr. Collmore is talking about. It's not going to have those.
No, that's
No,
a
it might
memorial.
be
That's a
city
city
event.
thing. That's a city event. Yeah. And Ms. Diaz, just a friendly reminder, if we can just send a thank you letter to President Royale from Holyoke Community College. All right, so I'm going to entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second. So roll call vote, please.
Mayor Garcia, Mrs. LaFave,
yes.
Miss Brunel,
Yes.
Mr. Romero,
Yes.
Miss Williams,
Yes.
Mrs. Burks, Miss Feliciano, Mr. Willihan,
Yes.
Mr. Collmore,
Yes.
Mrs. Wilson,
Yes.
Mr. Kennedy.
Yes.
All right, great. Motion passes unanimously. So meeting adjourned at 9:01 p.m.